came into the room and she's like, look at my phone. And then I couldn't see it, so I had to look at mine. I'm like, oh.
Yeah, it's going to be a good game, but I can't bet against Tom Brady. I have the Bucs winning 31-27 and Tom Brady going to his 10th championship.
Aaron Rodgers and his people were like, they listened to our episode and they said, hold our cheesehead or coat.
Donovan Mitchell, who right now looks to be a superstar.
Just amazing. And I don't care what the Red Sox got for trading Mookie Betts and David Price. The Dodgers, in my opinion, win it. I don't have to see what players they gave up.
Yeah, that's not just the Chiefs. That's Andy Reid. He knows the defenses so well because he's such a great offensive mind. That
well, you said you can't bet against Tom Brady, and as a Cowboys fan and what I just did last weekend, I am not gonna bet against Aaron Rodgers.
It was a great series. Game 4 was one of the best games I've ever watched in my entire life.
Just goes to show the offense for the Dallas Stars could not keep up, and when the defense needed to step up, the Lightning's offense just overpowered them.
Chris Paul is one of the most underrated players of all time. He's been the best player wherever he goes, and that includes with the Rockets. Yeah, Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl. I mean, that's all I can really say. There's 2 of the top 5 players in the league, and they are very, very good.
Yeah, and I really think the Clippers' chance to win the championship was last year, and they were up 3-1 against the Denver Nuggets.
Hello, I'm Taylor Hearn, and you listen to The Outsiders' Opinions with Kevin and Austin.
What's up, y'all? Welcome to our NBA Opinions of the Week for October 31st. We are 2 weeks in for the NBA season. I'm thinking of MLB for some reason. But the NBA, 2 weeks. Do the first 2 weeks matter, Austin?
Yes and no. It really depends on how healthy your team is. Does it really matter? Because if they're not healthy, it matters. But it doesn't necessarily end your season if you're starting out poorly, because you're not necessarily going to, you're not necessarily going to be playing your normal lineup like you would be if you were completely healthy because you have somebody out. I mean, for the Warriors, it does matter a lot, but they don't have Clay, so I wouldn't say it's paramount to get off to a perfect start, which they haven't. But if you're a fully healthy team, and you're trying to rebound from last year, yes, I do think the first 2 weeks matter. What about you?
I think they matter. Maybe they matter now because of the play-in tournament, and you don't want to get this. You want to get above the 6th seed, but I think as long as you can get in, like, there's still plenty of games to be played, so you don't really have to worry that much. But you do make a good point about injuries. If someone's injured, then you're fine, but you want to have some good signs. But if you're not playing your best game, then it's fine. Just stay afloat. If we look at the standings right now, number 1 team right now is Jazz. That's not surprising. Warriors are 2. Mavericks are somehow 3. Grizzlies are at 4. But, like, you see the Nuggets at 7. You see the Lakers at 6. You see the Clippers at 9. So I'm not too worried. Maybe I'm a little worried about the Lakers. I'm not worried about the Nuggets. Clippers is kind of where I expected. But, so, yes and no. But I'm probably leaning a little bit more towards no. Because I think there's stuff you can figure out in that first 2 weeks. But I think if your offense is totally off, then I'm worrying. Like, I'm worried about the Mavericks.
Yeah, they got a lucky win against the Spurs. And I always say it's lucky because they won the game because of the Dejounte Murray free throw miss. If the free throw miss does not occur and they do hit the 3 like they did, it would have been a tie 109-109 game, and there would be no need to foul Jalen Brunson. And then obviously he misses the 2 free throws, second one being intentional, but there was only 2 seconds left anyway, so the Spurs didn't have much time to do anything with it. So, yeah, it was a lucky win by the Mavs, and their Pythagorean wins are not high, but winning is wins are wins. So it doesn't really matter how bad you look, but they've ended up winning their games. So That's all you can really ask for. Now,
Yeah,
obviously,
that's
you can, yeah.
true. But can you explain Pythagorean wins? I know you explained it to me, but for the people unfamiliar.
So Pythagorean wins are like how much wins depend on your like offensive, defensive stats, net rating, basically. How many games you actually should have won if you were facing a league average opponent. So in the Mavs case, I believe they should only have 2 Pythagorean wins, and that's because they have not played well even in their wins. Like their offensive rating is very low. Their defensive rating is better than it was last year, but still not good. So they are their Pythagorean wins are not high. If we go to baseball, same thing, but it's based on your runs scored and allowed. So the Dodgers had more Pythagorean wins than San Francisco. San Francisco was only supposed to win 105, not 107, and the Dodgers were supposed to win 110 based on their Pythagorean wins. But that's really, really close to what they actually ended up being, 107 and 106. So normally Pythagorean wins are a pretty good indicator of where a team's going to end up. San Francisco and the Dodgers were both insane last year, so it makes sense how they were close. But for the Mavs, they're going directly opposite of what their Pythagorean wins is. But I mean, Pythagorean wins are not how you calculate a team making the playoffs or not. So they got off to a good start in the win column, which is always a good thing.
Yeah, they've gotten very lucky with a lot of their wins because they have not played well, or there's always something that is not going right for the Mavs. Um, and then let's look at the East. Like Bucks are number 10, 4 wins, 4 losses. Sixers are somehow still at number 1, and then Wizards are at 7. But the thing is, the Bucks, like I wouldn't worry about the Bucks. Nets, they're at 5. Like these teams that want to go far in the playoffs, I don't think the first 2 weeks really matter to them. It's about just making sure everyone's healthy and we're good. I only said the Lakers because they have so many new players. That's why it's important. What do you have to add?
Yeah, and it's mainly a good record, not necessarily seed. So the Wizards may be 7, but they're 5-3, and they play the Grizzlies tonight. If they win, they'll be 6-3. So it's a good record, not necessarily a good seed. So even though they are what you said they were, it doesn't necessarily matter in that case, considering the fact that they got off to a good start record wise, and they were 5-1 and lost the last 2 games by single digits. And then obviously I'm a Wizards fan, so I hope they win tonight. But if they don't, that's when I'm going to start worrying because we lost 3 games straight. But I mean, the Grizzlies are a good team, and the Grizzlies have gotten off to a hot start as well. So it just really depends on how a team's performing. And like you said, if you have a lot of new players or you have a lot of rookies, young players, or teams that are new to winning, it's important to get off to a good start. However, if it's a team that is just not used to losing, like the Nets, they have a lot of players who've won before. It's not as important to get off to the hottest of starts.
Yeah, and now let's move into. I know we're only 2 weeks in, but there's still stuff carrying over from the offseason, which is I'm just going to focus on Ben Simmons. Kyrie, you still have that situation, but I don't think we necessarily see Kyrie. The worst thing is he just doesn't play, and the Nets are just paying him. But for Ben Simmons trades, so will he be traded? And that goes to what teams will make trades. I'm gonna say I say the Mavs. I think we might see some trades. Maybe Porzingis, which I think I've warmed up to the idea of trading him because I think when we were talking about the trade rumors, I was pretty against it.
Mm-hmm.
But you just got cut bait, I guess, with it. So I know there are rumors like Simmons to Dallas, but I don't know. Just I think Mavs need to make a trade because you've had the main core for 3 years, and you really haven't done much in these 3 years except coming close to the Clippers, but they find a way to win. So I say Mavs. I think we may see a trade from the Raptors trading Dragic. I think some team will go after him. Maybe it's not the Mavericks, but someone needing a veteran leadership with a point guard and a backup point guard that can come in and really lead this team off the bench. Do you have any other teams that you think might make trades or are considering trades right now?
Yeah, I definitely think there's a good bit of teams right now that are definitely considering trades. But I think the major teams are, like you said, the Mavs, with their bad start, even with winning games. They just don't look the same. I know as a Mavs fan, you believe that too. They just don't look like a 3 seed should. So they're gonna have to make some trades. But I honestly, every team may make a move if injuries subside, or if they continue. It just depends on how things turn out for the rest of the season. Uh, I would not be surprised if the Lakers made a trade, trading Russ away, but I don't know who would take the contract or who can take the contract. So there's a lot of interesting factors into this. But there's a lot of teams that can make a move, and it's really up to if you're a contender or you're a seller, which we're about to go into. It really depends on what you're trying to receive.
Let's just do a possible trade. As you mentioned, Russ. I'm not sure. I think their contracts are close. Ben Simmons and Russ, maybe a swap, or no?
The contracts aren't that close.
They're not that close.
No, they're like
Is-
I'm pretty. Russ is over 40 million. He's
Oh,
like
wow.
43, and Simmons
Okay,
I
I
think is
thought
in the
Simmons.
28, 30.
I thought Simmons was at like 30 something.
He's either low 30s or high 20s.
I thought he was near 35 ish. So 5 years, 170 million extension in 2019. So let's just look at it.
Well, it's
Year
based
by
on what he's
year.
making this year. Is what the
Yeah,
trade.
but yeah, no. I'm just trying to see if we can do math. It's 33, so low 30s, as you said. So he's 33.
Is that what it is this season?
Yeah,
That's just the average amount, right? The
yeah, that's
100.
the average.
Yeah. Let me find out what he's making this year.
Or yeah,
He's making
and then
31.59 this year.
31. Okay, Russ is at 44.
Yeah. Next year he'll make 33.93. The year after that, 36.27, and the year after that, 38.61. So, like I said, the average may be 33, like you said, but I thought this year was low 30s, and it is 31.59. And so they would have to add somebody else in that deal to make sure that they could still fit under the cap.
Gotcha. Yeah, I was just curious because I know Russ, that big three isn't starting off well with Russ, which I think you could have seen because Russ, that big three of Russ, Davis, and LeBron, the best 3-point shooter is LeBron, and Westbrook is the worst, as we've talked about before. So that really doesn't fit in with that because if you're going to have a point guard, you're going to need him to shoot, to be a good 3-point shooter. Is that accurate?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it just depends on how a team's going to build around. But if you're going to build around a LeBron, especially, you're going to need players who can consistently make threes. We've seen it a lot of times, especially during good runs of his. The majority of players on his team are shooters and ones that can play good defense as well. Amon Shumpert was one of the players on the 2016 Cavs. I mean, we've seen James Jones continue with LeBron for a while there. He also got shooters like Mike Miller, Kyle Korver, Shane Battier, and they won championship. Ray Allen, they won championships with those guys. So you're going to need to make sure that the Lakers invest in quality shooters in order to kind of fix what's happening because he's taking space in the paint. He meaning Russ. Russ is taking space in the paint, and that's not really an option when you have AD. They're starting DeAndre Jordan, and you also have obviously LeBron. So there's a lot of things that they are going to have to fix in order to get into a good place, not only financially but winning wise.
Yeah, so now let's go into buyers and sellers. We've kind of already drifted into that, but like I think we can move past the buyers, Nets, Lakers, and yeah, that's mostly it. Lakers and Nets definitely are going to be buyers. They're going to do something, in my opinion. But another intriguing buyer could be maybe the Knicks, maybe the Hornets. And then West, I think Clippers, maybe. Mavs are buyers, but I also think we could see sellers that are also buyers, like the Mavs. I'm
Mhm.
afraid the Mavs might trade Jalen Brunson because of I don't know why they don't want to give him an extension, but I would give him an extension. But he's like your only good trade piece because we are out of picks and they might want to do something. I don't think they'll do it, but this front office has surprised us a lot in the past 6 months. So, What are your thoughts, Austin?
Yeah, other buyers, I would say any team that gets off to a flaming hot start, whether it be the Grizzlies, get off to a very, very good start. I can see them buying. They're also going to have to get maybe rid of Brandon Clark, who's gotten off to a bad start. So they could also be sellers in that instance, or they could try to get even a better player than what they have. But I feel like Brandon Clark has lost confidence with them, so they definitely will probably move off of of Brandon Clark and maybe Kyle Anderson. There's some guys that maybe moved off of depending on whether or not they're going to be at quality playing time moving forward. Another team I could see is Portland being a seller. Maybe they move off of Dame. They're getting off to not a great start, and Dame does not play well at all. So that's not a good thing, especially when they were 2 years ago in 2019. They went to the Western Conference Final, and they actually led the series in points. So they played well, and they just lost because of not being able to close out games. But they're gonna have to decide on their future right now because it could have a major impact on not only this upcoming offseason, but their next 5 years.
So let's look at teams with hot starts. You've mentioned the Grizzlies, but let's go to the East. You have the Bulls. Do you think they did a lot of stuff in the offseason? Do you think we see them make another buy at the soon or up to the trade deadline?
No, I really don't. Because I don't feel like there's anyone that they could pick up without having to give up way too many other pieces. Um, another team just to mention who could be a seller. I could see the Celtics getting rid of Tatum. Tatum has been one of the worst players on the team so far. He's allowing a lot of points defensively, and he's not scoring at all on offense, really. Um, and I feel like they're soon also going to be a team that has to decide on their future because I mean, 3 years ago we were talking about the next team in the East, and then they were not the next team in the East. The next team in the East was not only the Bucks but also the Toronto that year and the Heat the next year. So there's a lot of moves that need to be made from teams that aren't performing well. It's just they have to take a reality check and see what they want to get for every player because I feel like there would be a high price for someone like Tatum. Don't you agree?
Yeah, I was surprised when you said Tatum. I was thinking maybe Horford because I know people or one person I follow on Mav Twitter mentioned or was coming up with ideas for Horford and KP or something like that. So, but the Celtics also are an intriguing situation because Brad Stevens was the head coach, and I think a lot of people weren't sure about his coaching abilities. And then he gets a promotion by being the GM, and so he may have to make some tough decisions with players he's coached. And it's not unusual to see a coach become a GM. Donnie Nelson did it for the Mavericks. Who else am I forgetting? There's other coaches. Right?
Doc Rivers.
Oh, Doc Rivers.
Also, a player a coach who was a GM as well and still is, I believe, is Greg Popovich. But he was a GM first and hired himself as head coach. Talk about confidence. But yeah, I mean, it's really going to come down to can Brad Stevens let go of players that he personally have coached, and I do think that makes it a little bit personal since he has been around those players for so long.
Yeah, and the one big thing he did as GM was bring back a player that he coached, which was Horford, and it was a good move, but still someone that he had coached before, so that kind of goes to the point of a personal connection with them. And then maybe a team that we see buyers, like let's say Tatum is on, let's just do a potential trade. Tatum is on the board for the Celtics or a trade block. Maybe the Thunder. They have tons of loot. Maybe they go after Tatum and add Tatum. That would be quite addition wouldn't you think?
Yeah, I mean, that would be a very, very, very intriguing move if made. I that would shock me, especially because of how the Thunder are moving with picks and how many picks do you think they're going to have to give up if they do that? I don't know. It's going to be a lot of picks, I would assume.
Yeah, so we've kind of covered teams that are like would be buyers and sellers. But any other things you want to mention before we close this out?
Not really. It's been a very tumultuous start to the season, especially with guys like Kyrie and Ben Simmons not really abiding by whatever their team is telling them to do. So we'll have to see how this moves out forward. But I wouldn't necessarily be surprised if we see some big trades coming up.
Yeah, I think there will be something that definitely shocks us, but I can't really predict it because I'm expecting it to shock us. So I'll go, wow, that person was moved for this and all that. That team did this. So we'll definitely uh, keep you updated when or if that happens. So thank you for listening to Outsiders Opinions.